there! I'm the Doctor!
I'm Doctor Who.
My name is Doctor Who.
Young man, do you know what you have just done?
Hello, and I'm back with a very special one-off review. I didn't think we'd ever get this in like a million years, but here we are. Quite a lovely surprise, the Jungles of Mechanus Set, or as I'm going to be calling it, Doctor Who and the Daleks, sort of. Now, I know I'm saying this is a review video, but I'm also going to talk very briefly through the history of these Daleks, particularly for those who aren't aware of them. If, however, you just want to skip straight to the review, as I know some people will want to, if you look at your screen now, there should be a timestamp of the actual review itself and where it begins. So, the history of these Daleks. When it came to the Doctor Who TV show filming The Chase, Richard Martin had some issues with the budget and the fact that he needed more Daleks to try and make it look like there was an effective army coming towards the Doctor in this time machine, or as some people call it, the DARDIS. And to basically fulfill that without having to go to the expense of making new props, the BBC hired out 3 of the props from the Doctor Who and the Daleks film production, which had just finished filming. The particular Daleks that were used in The Chase appear very specifically in Doctor Who and the Daleks. I shall just name them 1, 2 and 3, but here is where 1 is in the film, here is where 2 is, and here is where 3 is. So these 3 Daleks were all in the Peter Cushing movie at these points, perhaps elsewhere in the movie, but I'll leave that to more experienced hands like Gavin Rymel to break down. If you don't know about Gavin, he's at Daleks6388.co.uk, and he has done, along with his friend whose name I can't quite remember at the moment, a lovely breakdown of all the Dalek props throughout the years and where they've appeared. So if you want to look at a more in-depth breakdown of that, that's the place to go. So these 3 Daleks had all appeared in the movie. They'd all been constructed and then they were hired out for this, and they appeared first in episode 3. Now, because they were hiring out these Daleks, they couldn't change the paint job, they couldn't really modify them in any notable way, because Doctor and the Daleks still had quite a bit of promotion to go, and I don't imagine that Amicus or Iaru, anyway, however you want to term it, they couldn't really do a lot with these 3 Daleks, and the problem was they were quite noticeably different from the TV Daleks. So when they appear in the Dalek time machine, they've had their very different orange lights removed and replaced with small lights, as seen here, and they've also had the base removed from them. Now, we've had a release of that variant before, sort of, as an SFX Dalek, but this version is not that version. This version is from episode 5, where they were back in studio for a brief appearance, but they'd had their original lights added back on, along with their the original bumpers at the bottom put back on, and they appear very, very brief in the episode. But nonetheless, they do appear in the episode as they appeared in the movies. And these 2 Daleks coming down, along with a BBC camera, but I don't think we'll be getting a figure of the BBC camera, but I guess the character has finally figured out the legal means of justifying this release, because of course I think it's always been a bit of a point of contention that the Doctor Who and the Daleks film, along with the second film, Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD, aren't covered by the license the character options have and aren't covered by the license that other companies like Eagle Moss get. It's out with their remit, but it's quite a nice surprise and quite a worthwhile surprise. I like to think of it as the SFX Dalek is Dalek 1, and this is us now getting Daleks 2 and 3 added to the mix. But yeah, it's just amazing to me that we finally have these Daleks. To point out one little misunderstanding that some people have about the Dalek props, and I must thank explicitly Gavin Rymel and his friend whose name I really can't remember. I'm going to end up putting it on screen here, and I apologise to them for not remembering the name right now. There is some misconception that the Dalek in Planet of the Daleks that had been loaned from Terry Nation was from the first movie, but it's actually from Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. They had a completely new set of Daleks made for it, and it is believed that the 3 Daleks that ended up in the chase, which are represented here in this figure set, were actually given away as part of a competition, a win your own life-size Dalek competition. So anyway, moving on from the history of these Daleks onto the set itself. So this set was announced not too long ago and was made as a character online exclusive, which means you can only get it through the Character Options website itself, and it's a limited edition run of 5,000. They have already said quite outright that there are not going to be any more of these after they're gone. Once they're gone, they're gone. So we have the usual Dalek packaging for these sets, the usual notation of the title of the set and the story from which these Daleks have been taken, just like the history of the Dalek sets. We also have the new series style logo, but in the sort of greyer look that they seem to be using on a lot of the classic style releases, along with the blue and grey-white TARDIS. And turning round to the back of the box, we have this lovely little description of the story of the chase itself, as well as the history of these Daleks. And I know we've all been joking about the fact that this set is called The Jungles of Mechanus, and we're all going ha-de-ha, it's really the Cushing Daleks. The back of the box is actually pretty upfront about this, I've noticed, and about the BBC camera. So it's nice that they've given part of the context of these Daleks to people that may be a little bit less familiar. To be honest, I don't imagine that there are very many people interested in buying this set that won't already be aware to some degree, but it's a nice addition. Anyway, moving into the box itself, we have the Dalek figures and this interesting little backdrop. I've rather been enjoying these on all the recent sets as these specially designed backdrops, and this one is quite amazing. So first of all, we have what appears to be the fungoid jungle from the last couple of episodes of The Chase. A slightly oversized version of the front of the TARDIS prop as it was, but we also have a number of other little Easter eggs that I've spotted. We have a bracelet from Blake 7, which is a running theme as well. Al Juar, who is in charge of the Doctor Who Character Options range, is a fan of Blake 7, and he's been sneaking Blake 7 Easter eggs in here and there. And then we have some symbols that I think are meant to be a riff on the TV version of Dalek Invasion of Earth. There's signs about with Dalek symbols that basically were created by the production to hide certain signs that would give away that the location filming was being shot in present day rather than in
2164.
And right down at the corner, although it's very dark and very difficult to get a clear shot of it, is a button that will be familiar to those who have seen The Face of Evil. And speaking of some evil, we also have some ore canisters from Planet of Evil. And finally, we have a bomb from Planet of the Daleks. Although to see that one clearly, you'll have to take out the TARDIS insert. I should say, just be very careful about trying to take that out, because it's quite finicky. Because it's obviously been sellotaped in by its tabs. And as you can see, I have slightly lost some of the printing in trying to remove the tape, so just be careful of that. But of course, I've rambled on about the history and about the box far enough, so let's actually get down to talking about the actual Daleks. Just wow. I'm so impressed, really, by the paint job. The blue on the base is just perfect, and I was a little bit worried that they weren't going to quite get the contrast of the dark blue between the silver on the skirt quite right, but they seem to have nailed it pretty well. My only little complaint would be that the head looks a bit purple, but you know, I'm willing to excuse that because obviously the chase is in black and white, so there's a bit of in-universe leeway on what colour or what shade of bluey, purpley colour the head was. I know some people have said and will continue to say that why don't they have the claws? That's the only thing missing. Going back to what I said very, very briefly in the history section is the 3 Dalek props that were used for this story, none of them had the claw. So I imagine the claw was completely out of the question for making these figures because the claw, unlike the rest of the Dalek, hasn't been seen on TV. Another little detail that I've noticed that nobody seems to have commented on is the Dalek gunstick, because the Dalek gunstick on the other Daleks in the chase is just the standard 60s TV Dalek one of the time, and the SFX Chase Guard figure uses that one, but here they seem to have, I don't know if they've used a completely new sculpt for the gun, but it's certainly a different one and more accurate to how it looked in the Cushing films. And the lights, oh the lights. Very surprised at this, to be honest, because I thought they would have just used the jam jar lights from the Planet of the Daleks one, because everybody has that association of the Planet of the Daleks Supreme with the Cushing movies, but they've actually gone ahead and it looks like completely new sculpting on this head, and they've quite clearly and neatly outlined the ridges that would have been present around the light. It's quite a nice touch, and they've also added a little sliver of the bluey purpley paint to the joint, so to speak, of the eye stalk, which is also accurate to how the props would have been. So, taking a look at the articulation, it's just the standard Dalek articulation. Head rotates 360 degrees, the eye stalk goes up and down, although I would be a little bit wary because the eye stalk on mine were quite stiff. The plunger rotates around in its ball joint, as does the gun, and it moves about on its 3 wheels. And I mean, what more could one ask for than what they've done here, because it's amazing the amount of detail they've managed to preserve from the props themselves in creating this release. It's obviously never going to be perfectly accurate because the costs, the economies really of doing that would just be too insane, but the fact that they've been able to get the ear sculpting done and give it a more accurate gun and a perfect paint job. And I will be honest, I'm just totally in love with these Daleks. You could pose them in the TARDIS, you could make your own little set and pose them in that. Perhaps they're invading the sewers this time around, and perhaps you even have a custom or two to pose them along with, like I do. Overall, this is just an absolutely fantastic little limited edition treat for the fans of Doctor Who. I really hope there'll be more, to be honest. The word through the grapevine, although I can't vouch for it being accurate, is that there will be more sets like this as online limited edition exclusives. And if they're just like the quality of these ones, then I will be all too excited to see what the future has ahead.